The gate camera catches him at 4 in the morning. Dale Whitlock cuts the chain with bolt cutters from his saddlebag, and he doesn't look at the lens. He walks straight to the broken enclosure, kneels in the mud, and lifts something small and striped into his arms. A security guard's radio crackles. "We've got movement at the tiger habitat. Repeat, movement at the tiger habitat." Dale tucks the cub inside his leather vest, zips it halfway, and swings onto his Harley. By the time headlights sweep across the gravel road, he's already gone, taillights shrinking into the dark. The guard grabs his radio again. "He's stealing the cub." Nobody at the sanctuary knows his name yet. By sunrise, the story is already moving through 3 counties. Dale Whitlock, outlaw biker, arrested for stealing a tiger cub from a wildlife sanctuary. That's the version on the scanner, the version at the diner, the version Sheriff Boyd radios in twice before breakfast. None of it explains why a man with no keys to that gate knew exactly how warm to make the bottle, or how to hold a cub too small to survive the night alone. It doesn't explain what Dale Whitlock used to be, 3 years before that fence went up between him and his own daughter. But first, you need to know what happened at the sanctuary 3 years earlier. 3 years earlier, Dale Whitlock knows every animal at Piney Creek by the sound of its breathing. 11 years he's worked the night shift at the sanctuary, and 11 years he's been the only one Roman the big Bengal tiger will let close enough to touch. He knows the storm that night is bad before the radio says so. The sky turns the color of a bruise, and Roman paces his enclosure in tight, nervous circles, the way he only does before thunder. Dale checks the north latch himself at 6 in the evening. Solid. He logs it, same as always, and hands the clipboard to Ray Colton for the overnight round. Ray doesn't check it again. He signs his name under Dale's and goes home early because his daughter has a dance recital and the rain is already coming down sideways. At 11 that night, the latch gives out. Roman doesn't attack anyone. He just walks, confused and soaked, into the open field behind the volunteer barn. And it's Sarah Voss, 19 years old, flashlight in hand, who rounds the corner and finds 400 pounds of tiger standing between her and the gate. She falls trying to run, breaks her wrist on the fence post. Roman never touches her, but the sanctuary board doesn't know that part yet when they call the emergency meeting 2 days later. The parking lot is full. Donors in polo shirts, reporters from the county paper, half the volunteer roster standing in a loose circle under the string lights Dale hung himself last spring. Warren Kessler, the director, stands on the tailgate of his truck so people can see him. "We had an incident Saturday night that could have gotten someone killed," he says, "and we know exactly whose signature is on that safety log." Piney Creek is 2 weeks from a grant renewal worth $60,000, and Warren needs the cameras and the reporters to see the board taking it seriously. Ray Colton doesn't wait to be asked. "Dale checked that latch at 6, he says, loud enough for the reporters to hear. "I trusted him. We all trusted him." Nobody in that parking lot knows Ray signed under him 3 hours later. Nobody asks. Ray Colton gets promoted to head keeper within the month, the position that used to be Dale's. And he never once brings up who really signed that log. Dale doesn't argue. He stands there in his sanctuary polo, hands loose at his sides, and lets 11 years get erased in under 2 minutes. Warren asks for his badge. Dale unclips the laminated card from his belt, the one with his photo from 11 years ago, hair still dark, and holds it out. Warren doesn't take it gently. He just holds his hand open until Dale drops it in. 14-year-old Casey watches from the hay bales near the concession stand, where she's been folding raffle tickets since noon. She doesn't run to him. She doesn't say anything at all. She doesn't cry. She picks the roll of raffle tickets back up and keeps folding, hands steady, eyes on the perforated paper instead of her father's back. She keeps folding until the truck is gone. It wasn't embarrassment. It was the first time in her life she'd watched someone she trusted get erased in front of a crowd and said nothing. That night, Dale doesn't throw the badge away. He puts it in the glove box of his truck, face down, and he doesn't look at it again for 3 years. Dale doesn't go looking for the outlaw riders. His older brother, Mike, has ridden with the club for 20 years, and it's Mike who shows up at Dale's apartment with a spare helmet and doesn't ask a single question. The club doesn't care what the county paper printed. Nobody there asks him to explain the latch or the girl's wrist or the badge in his glove box. They just hand him a wrench and tell him the clubhouse generator needs work. It's the first job anyone's trusted him with in 6 months. By the time anyone thinks to check the storm log against the maintenance calendar, the story has already hardened into something simpler. The biker got careless. The girl broke her wrist. Piney Creek moved on. Casey stopped calling him at his new address within the month and stopped calling him Dad within the year. And on the far side of the fence, nobody sees Dale return alone, month after month, and stand at the tree line until the lights inside go dark. 3 years pass, and Dale Whitlock doesn't get any of them back. He works the counter at a motorcycle repair shop on Route 14 now, 40 hours a week for $18 an hour, and he lives in a single-wide trailer behind the Outlaw Riders clubhouse. He doesn't sleep past 4 in the morning anymore, hasn't since the parking lot. His doctor calls it stress. Dale calls it a habit he can't shake, the same as checking a latch that isn't his to check. Casey is 17 now, and she still volunteers at Piney Creek every Saturday. She's good at it, better than good, and everyone at the sanctuary says so. She's applying to 2 veterinary programs in the fall, both with exotic animal tracks, and she hasn't told her father, though Mike already knows because Mike knows everything before anyone means for him to. She missed her father's birthday in March. He sent a card anyway, no return address because he didn't want her to feel like she had to answer it. She didn't. What nobody at the shop knows is that Dale still keeps his hand in. Twice a month, he drives out to old Doc Pruitt's veterinary clinic and bottle feeds whatever's come in orphaned that week. Barn kittens mostly, once a fawn. He doesn't get paid for it. Doc Pruitt doesn't ask why a biker with grease under his nails knows the exact temperature to warm a bottle to, or how to hold a newborn's head so it doesn't choke. Dale never explains, and Doc Pruitt never pushes. In April, Piney Creek takes in a rescued Bengal tiger named Nadia, pulled out of a roadside zoo in 3 counties over that shut down for good. Nadia is pregnant when she arrives. She has 2 cubs in a converted barn stall that Ray Colton, now head keeper, builds fast and cheap to make the grant deadline. One cub doesn't survive the week, the other does. Dale hears about the birth from Mike, who hears about everything from his cousin's wife, who cleans the sanctuary gift shop twice a month. He drives past the fence line that same week, slows down without meaning to, and sees the new enclosure from the road. He recognizes the latch design immediately. It's the same cheap hardware store hinge that failed on Roman's Gate 3 years earlier. He'd know it anywhere. He installed 6 of them himself, back when the budget was even tighter than it is now, and he always meant to replace them before the warranty ran out. He writes a letter, doesn't sign it, drops it in the sanctuary's donation box instead of the mail because he doesn't trust his name to get past the front desk. The letter says the north hinge on the new cub enclosure won't hold through a hard storm. Nobody at Piney Creek ever opens the donation box that month. It sits under a stack of raffle stubs until the ink starts to bleed. The storm that matters arrives on a Thursday in late June, same time of year as the one before it. Dale is 15 miles away at a charity poker run with the rest of the club, 40-some riders raising money for a burned-out firehouse in the next county, when the wind starts pulling shingles off the clubhouse roof back home. He checks the weather radar on his phone under the pavilion tent, sees the storm cell sitting right over Piney Creek, red and swollen on the screen. He calls the sanctuary's after-hours line twice. Nobody answers. Budget cuts close the night desk in May. He leaves the poker run at 9:40 alone, without telling anyone where he's going. By the time Sheriff Boyd's deputies reach the sanctuary the next morning, the north hinge has failed exactly the way Dale's letter said it would. The enclosure gate is hanging open in the mud, and one tiger cub and one biker are both gone. The sheriff doesn't need long to build a theory. "Outlaw riders," he says to his deputies standing under the busted latch with his hands on his hips. "Same club Dale Whitlock rides with. Man gets fired from this place, waits 3 years, comes back and takes something that matters to them. That's not an accident. That's a message." Ray Colton agrees before anyone asks him to. He always did think this place owed him something, he tells the county paper. By noon, half the town believes it. A grudge, 3 years old, finally cashed in. The theory holds for exactly 1 day. Because 41 people can put Dale's entire club at that firehouse fundraiser from 6 in the evening until well past midnight, ticket stubs and photographs and a raffle drawing on video, every rider accounted for except one. No plan, no getaway route, no club members waiting down the road, no truck idling with the lights off. Just one man, alone, on a bike, registered in his own name, wearing a vest with his club's patch stitched right over his heart, driving straight toward the one place in 3 counties where every camera could see his face. Sheriff Boyd reads the alibi list twice, then a third time, standing in the gravel lot outside the impound yard. "If it wasn't the club," he says slowly, mostly to himself, "then somebody needs to tell me what in the hell he was doing out there alone." Nobody can answer that yet. Not the sheriff, not Ray Colton, not even Casey, who hears the theory fall apart secondhand from a text message and reads it 4 times before she understands what it means. Her father didn't go there with anyone. He didn't go there for revenge. He went there for something else, and right now, he's still out on Route 14 with a dying engine light and a tiger cub that won't stop shaking. Here is what actually happens at Piney Creek, in the 10 minutes before the world starts calling it a theft. Dale reaches the fence at 11:20, soaked through, lightning close enough now that the thunder comes on top of it instead of after. He finds the north hinge exactly where his letter said it would fail, sheared clean through the same weak point as before. The gate hangs sideways on its one good bolt. Inside, the cub is alone. No sign of Nadia, who's pacing the far side of a collapsed inner partition with a gash above her eye, too disoriented by the noise and the blood to come when Dale calls to her. The night desk is dark. The after-hours line is dead. The storm took the phone lines down at 10:51, and nobody at Piney Creek will know that for another 6 hours. Dale doesn't call anyone else. There isn't time. A cub this size loses body heat fast in wet grass, faster than most people would guess, and this one's core temperature is already dropping toward the range where heart just stops. He knows the number, 94 degrees. He learned it 11 years ago from an old vet who used to say, "A scared animal will forgive you for almost anything, except being slow," and Dale never once needed the number since, until tonight. He climbs the fence. The cub doesn't fight him. It's too cold to fight anyone. Dale unzips his jacket, tucks the cub against his chest skin to skin, the oldest trick in the book for a body that's forgotten how to make its own heat, and zips it halfway so the animal can breathe. He checks the gums. Pale, not blue. 12 minutes, maybe less, before that changes. Doc Pruitt's clinic is 12 miles down Route 14. The sanctuary's own emergency vet is 40 minutes out on a night like this, if she can get out at all. Dale doesn't debate it. He's on the bike before the guard finishes radioing it in. He rides low over the tank, one arm locked across the cub, keeping its head tucked below the wind. He takes the curve past the feed store, doing 50, faster than he's taken it in 3 years, and he doesn't look back at the flashing light coming up behind him. He's done this math already. 12 miles, under 10 minutes if nothing stops him. Something stops him. 2 patrol units cut across Route 14 at the county line, blocking both lanes, light bars turning the wet road red and blue. Dale brakes hard, back wheel sliding out on the gravel shoulder, and comes to a stop 20 feet from the nearest cruiser with the cub still zipped against his chest. Hands where I can see them. Dale doesn't move his arms. Can't. Not without exposing the cub to the rain, and even now boxed in on both sides with 3 more units closing fast behind him. That's the one thing he won't do. Sir, step off the bike. Now. There's an animal in here that's going to die if it gets cold again, Dale says, loud enough to carry over the engines. I'm not stealing it. I'm trying to save it. It needs a vet in the next 10 minutes. Nobody believes him. Why would they? A man in an outlaw patch, running from a wildlife sanctuary at midnight with something alive stuffed inside his jacket, isn't a story anyone in that moment knows how to read any other way. Then let us call one, the closest deputy shouts back. Get off the bike and let us call one. There isn't a vet in 3 counties who'll get here faster than I can, Dale says. Doc Pruitt's 12 miles that way. Let me go and follow me. Follow me the whole way, but let me go. A deputy's hand moves to his holster. Get off the bike. Last time I'm asking. 15 miles back, Casey is already driving. She got the alert on her phone, a county scanner app half the volunteers use, and she was in her car before she finished reading the second line. She doesn't call her father. Doesn't know yet that it's him. She just knows something's wrong at the fence line. And some part of her that's been quiet for 3 years is suddenly, violently awake. She calls Mike instead, hands shaking on the wheel. Rain so hard the wipers can't keep up. Something happened at the sanctuary, she says. I don't know what yet. Mike doesn't ask questions. He just says he's already got his keys. She's 11 minutes out when she hits the roadblock traffic on Route 14 and has to pull onto the shoulder. Boxed in behind 2 more county cruisers she doesn't recognize, straining to see past the flashing lights toward whatever's happening at the front of the line. Back at the first roadblock, Dale still hasn't moved, rain running down the back of his neck. Cub gone dead still against his chest, not fighting anymore, not shivering anymore either, which is worse. 3 deputies now, weapons drawn, shouting instructions on top of each other. Sheriff Boyd's cruiser pulling in behind them, siren cutting off mid-wail. Dale looks down once at the small shape zipped inside his jacket, gone almost too still to feel breathing. Then he looks back up at 4 drawn weapons and does the only thing he can still do. He starts talking, and he doesn't stop. Half a mile out, another truck is already turning onto Route 14. Ray Colton got the dispatch call same as everyone else, and he's driving toward the roadblock now with his headlights cutting through the rain, ready to tell the sheriff everything he thinks he knows about the man who used to work for him. Ray Colton's truck skids to a stop behind the roadblock at 11:51, and he's out the door before it's fully in park. That's him, he tells Sheriff Boyd, pointing past the cruisers. That's the one we let go 3 years back. I told you he never let this place alone. Sheriff Boyd doesn't lower his weapon, but he doesn't give the order either. Dale hasn't moved from the shoulder of the road, cub gone, frighteningly still against his chest, rain plastering his shirt flat. Sheriff, he says, voice steady even now. You can cuff me the second this animal's warm, not before. You hear that? Ray says, turning to the sheriff. 3 years, and he's still telling this place how things are gonna go. He doesn't sound angry so much as tired, like a man repeating a line he's said so many times he's stopped checking if it's true. That's when Casey's car finally breaks free of the traffic behind the second roadblock, and she comes running down the center line in the headlights, soaked to the skin, waving something over her head. Wait, she's shouting before she's even close enough to be heard clearly. Wait, you have to see this first. She skids to a stop between her father and 4 drawn weapons, chest heaving, and holds out a folded, water-stained piece of paper. I found this in the donation box 2 weeks ago, she says. Cleaning out the gift shop. I recognize the handwriting. I've been looking at it my whole life. Sheriff Boyd takes it, reads it once under the cruiser's spotlight, then again. An anonymous warning about a failing hinge on the north enclosure, dated 14 days earlier. Word for word, the exact failure sitting behind him in the mud right now. Whoever wrote this, he says slowly, knew this was going to happen before it happened. He wrote it, Casey says. He tried to tell you. Nobody opened the box. Headlights sweep the scene again as one more vehicle pulls up, an old Buick driven carefully, well under the speed limit even now. Adeline Rhodes gets out slower than everyone else, 81 years old. The woman who founded Piney Creek, 30 years before Warren Kessler ever set foot on the property. Casey called her from the road. Adeline walks straight past the deputies to where Dale is still standing, unzips his jacket herself with steady hands, and looks at exactly how he's positioned the cub, skin against skin, head elevated, gums checked. Skin contact and glucose within the hour, she says, mostly to the sheriff now. That's not something you guess your way into. That's something I taught maybe 6 people in 30 years. And I taught it to Dale Whitlock myself back when he ran the night shift better than anyone I ever hired before or since. She looks at Ray Colton for the first time. I always wondered why you let him go so fast. I was in Montana that week, or I promise you I'd have asked more questions than anyone bothered to. She turns back to the sheriff. In 30 years, I never had a keeper better with a frightened animal than this man. Whatever this county decided about him, it decided without me. The silence after that runs longer than anyone wants it to. Sheriff Boyd checks his phone, pulls up the after-hours call log the dispatcher sent through 20 minutes ago. 2 missed calls to the sanctuary's deadline logged at 11:06 and 11:09. He matches the timestamps against the storm damage report, against the letter in his hand, against a man who's been standing perfectly still in the rain for 6 minutes now, refusing to let go of an animal that isn't his. Written warning, 2 weeks out. 2 calls for help that nobody answered. A hinge that failed at the exact minute the storm hit hardest. And a man who left a charity fundraiser alone, without telling a soul where he was going, because he'd done the math on how long a cub that size could last in wet grass, and knew he didn't have time to explain himself to anyone first. It isn't the story anyone in that parking lot built 3 years ago, and it isn't the story anyone built tonight either. Ray, the sheriff says, the maintenance log from 3 years back, the one on Roman's enclosure. Who signed off on the final check that night? Ray doesn't answer right away. rain running off the brim of his cap, 4 flashlights on him now instead of Dale, and something in his face finally gives out the way the hinge did. "I did," he says. 3 hours after Dale's shift ended. "I never told anyone I went back out." He looks at Dale, then at the ground. "My wife was 7 months pregnant with our first. I panicked. I let the board look at your name instead of mine, and then I kept letting it happen month after month because it got easier every time I didn't say anything." He wipes rain off his face with the back of his hand. "You've been fixing my mistakes for 3 years, and I let this whole county believe you were the one who couldn't be trusted." Nobody moves for a second. Then Sheriff Boyd lowers his weapon and the 3 deputies behind him do the same, one after another, like something loosening all down the line. "Get that animal to a vet," Boyd says. "Now, somebody clear a path." Dale is already moving before the sentence finishes. Back on the bike, Casey's hand still gripping his sleeve like she isn't ready to let go of it yet. Like 6 minutes isn't nearly enough after 3 years of nothing at all. Doc Pruitt's waiting room smells like antiseptic and wet dog, and nobody in it says much for the first 20 minutes. Dale sits with his jacket still damp, elbows on his knees, watching the door to the back room like it might open on bad news at any second. Casey sits close enough that their shoulders touch, closer than she's sat to him in 3 years, and neither of them mentions that. The door finally opens at 12:40. "Core temps back to 99, Doc Pruitt says, pulling off her gloves. "Little fighter, another 20 minutes out there and we'd be having a different conversation." She looks at Dale. "You did this right. Every step of it." Outside, word has already spread past the deputies. A dozen people stand in the clinic's gravel lot in the rain, some in sanctuary polos, some just neighbors who heard it on the scanner, drawn by the same story that's been wrong for 3 years and is about to get corrected in front of all of them. Sheriff Boyd steps out onto the porch first. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Everyone's already listening. "I want it on record," he says, "that Dale Whitlock broke into that enclosure to save an animal's life, not to steal one, and that he tried to warn this sanctuary 2 weeks before any of this happened. Nobody listened then. I'm asking you to listen now." Nobody in that lot says a word. Not Ray, standing at the edge of the crowd with his hands in his pockets. Not the reporter with her notebook already closed. The quiet that follows isn't awkward. It's the sound of a debt finally getting paid. Dale doesn't say anything either. He doesn't need to. He just stands there in the porch light, rain easing up behind him, the same way he stood in a parking lot 3 years ago and let people believe whatever they wanted. Casey is the one who breaks it. She steps in front of him, the way she hasn't let herself do in 3 years, and for a second, neither of them moves. "Dad," she says. Just that. One word she hasn't used out loud since a birthday card with no return address. Dale's jaw tightens and he doesn't trust himself to answer right away. So he just pulls her in instead. Both arms around her, rain-soaked jacket and all, in front of the sheriff and the reporter and Ray Colton and everyone else who spent 3 years believing the easier story. Behind the clinic door, the cub sleeps under a heat lamp, temperature holding steady, chest rising and falling in the slow, even rhythm of something that's going to be just fine. Adeline Rhodes is already on the phone with the emergency vet team back at Piney Creek, arranging for Nadia to be sedated and checked for the gash above her eye. She'll want her cub back the second she's steady, Adeline says, and this time, somebody's going to make sure that Hinge gets replaced before we put them both behind it again. 3 weeks later, the cub has a name. Casey picked it over Dale's objections. Diesel. He's back in a proper enclosure now, new hinges on every gate. Nadia curled around him most afternoons like she's still counting his breaths. Dale shows up most Saturdays, unpaid, unofficial, usually with grease still under his nails from the shop. Nobody stops him at the gate anymore. Ray hands him the clipboard sometimes, and neither of them makes it into anything bigger than it is. Adeline had a new badge made. Dale keeps the old one too, clipped now to the inside of his saddlebag instead of hidden in a glove box, close enough to touch, never far from where he's going. Casey starts veterinary school in the fall. She already asked him to be there. Not every rider who slows down outside a fence at night is running from something. Some of them have just been waiting for somebody to ask why they stopped.